Habits get a bad rap, don't they? When you think of habit, you normally think of bad habits, don't you? Yeah, that's what normally I think about anyway, bad habits. And what are some bad habits that you think of? Okay, smoking, that's a bad habit, yeah. What else? Nothing else, just smoking, that's it. All right, it's the only, yep, in the back there, I see you. Okay, alcohol, yeah, absolutely. Abusing alcohol, that can be a very bad habit. What else? Yeah, swearing can be a very bad habit. Yeah, and we should be avoiding some bad habits. Biting your fingernails is a bad habit. Maybe procrastination is a bad habit. There's lots of bad habits that we certainly can develop. But there are good habits, right? You can't have good you can have some really good habits in your life. In fact, maybe spending time sitting down as a family together, having dinner together, that's a very good habit to develop. Or maybe even just watching what you eat. That's another very good habit that we can develop as well. I think in some ways habits can either make us or they can break us, just depending on what they are. And as we think about the habits of our life, I think there's some great habits that I know that I've developed in my own life that I've just taken advantage of already this morning. You probably have made decisions this morning because of good habits you have in your life, right? When you got up, did you check your phone this morning? Yeah, I mean, or maybe did you make coffee this morning? How many of you made coffee this morning? How many made coffee before you made any decisions this morning? I mean, it just. And that happens, yeah. Or those are things that we do in our life that we do them not because we're even thinking about it, but we do them because we do them out of force of habit. Yes, that's exactly it. Well, it was about a couple months ago. I happened to catch an advertisement on TV, and it was a leadership conference, a business deal they were doing down in Cedar Rapids, and it was called The GOATs, Greatest Habits of All Time. And they were directing this toward business leaders, and evidently those business leaders who went, maybe some of you guys were able to go to that, and they were talking about these are great habits that successful business leaders put into their life. And if you're going to succeed in business, make sure you have these habits. I have no idea what those habits are that they were suggesting, but it got me to thinking. What are some great spiritual habits that if we put them into our life, if we bake them into our daily rhythm of life, they would produce some excellent results? And now, I'm not going to give you a comprehensive list of habits, but I thought, why don't we talk about some great habits that happen in our life? And if we put them into our life, they will really direct us and propel us toward spiritual growth. And so, as I look about these, I'm not talking about bad spiritual habits. I mean, there are some bad spiritual habits you can have. I'm not even talking about that'd be a good habit. I'm talking about what are some of the greatest spiritual habits of all time. That if I'm really going to grow, if I really want my life to become everything God wants it to be, can I purposely, intentionally put these habits in my life? And they would actually direct me, and they would propel me toward becoming the person Jesus wants me to be and living the life He wants me to live. So I came up with 8 of them that we can go over in these next few months, in months of July, the months of August. You see the ones that we're going to be looking at: rest and prayer, fasting, generosity, scripture, community. We're going to look at service, and we'll also look at witness. These are habits that if we look at them, some of them we're going to look at, and you're going to say, you know what, I'm doing really good in that area. Thank God. That's a habit I have in my life already, and I'm seeing the benefits of that habit. Then there's other habits that we're going to look at, and you may say, yeah, I got room for improvement there. And that's fine. What we're doing is we're identifying ways that we can maximize these spiritual disciplines, as they're called, so that we can grow faster and go further than what we ever had done before. So wherever you're at in any of these spiritual habits, that is exactly where God meets you. And He helps you to take the next step forward. Today we're going to talk about the habit of rest. Now, if you flip through any popular magazine, you're going to see all kinds of advertisements. That's basically all those are. It's just a book full of advertisements, and then they slip in some little article somewhere. But if you flip through them, you see that on all these advertisements, you're going to see, here's maybe a couple sitting down, and they're sipping coffee in this coffee shop. Or maybe there's a guy who's hanging out on a couch, he's playing guitar. Or maybe there's some friends who are walking along the beach, and if you look at it, you got to think, what are they actually selling? It could be anything, quite honestly. But what they're marketing is rest. Because they know that we all ache for rest. It's something that we don't have. But it's something we all absolutely need. And I want to talk to you about rest because as we look at the irony is, even though they're marketing rest, we don't find rest. Even if you do try to, you sign up for the 4 easy payments of $19.95 to get the terry cloth bathrobe. I mean, it just does. Yeah, you get it there, but it's not rest. Or you spend your whole paycheck to get the brand new couch, and you sit on the couch and realize, wait, I don't have time to be sitting down here. I got things to do. And so, you don't find that rest. The problem is not solved by buying something new or something improved. The need for rest is something that we all have. And the solution for rest is ancient, not new. One of the most famous invitations that Jesus gave is exactly what Caitlin was just sharing with the kids. But it's not just for kids. It's for every one of us. Here's what Jesus said. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened. Anybody like that? Yeah. Weary and burdened? Yeah. I'm there. I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Oh, what an invitation. Pastor Eugene Peterson, who crafted the Message paraphrase of the Bible. I love how he shared this same passage. Here's how he said it in the Message. He said, are you tired, worn out, burnt out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me, and you will recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Oh, and catch this. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you will learn to live freely and lightly. What a beautiful invitation. Did you know that for most of human history, we got about 10 to 11 hours of sleep every night? Do you realize that? 10 to 11. When's the last time you got 10 to 11 hours of sleep? Man, it is a long time ago. The average amount of sleep now in Western nations is 6 hours. We're getting half the amount of rest than what we used to do all throughout human history. And what has happened is that it actually leaves us exhausted. We are chronically exhausted. You can look up on your own and search the impact of of poor and insufficient sleep that it has on your mind and your body. It's a low-grade exhaustion. That has become the new normal, hasn't it? I mean, we're just worn out. We're chronically exhausted. Now, I know there are seasons of life that we're, okay, we got to go. But I can remember when our first child, Robert, was born. We were still in seminary. And I can remember getting home from class in the morning and then work in the afternoon. I'd come home in the evening. I'd spend time with Amy and Robert, and we'd have a few hours together. And then I'd put them to bed. And then it was time to do a bunch of homework because I was taking a full schedule of classes. So I get them. I put those guys to bed, including my wife. Good night. Pat her on the head, and I tuck Robert in. Then it was time to do a bunch of homework, and I can still remember. I can remember a lot of nights. I'd be rocking Robert, and I'd be looking out the window, and I could see the moon coming up over here. I'd put him to bed, and I'd start to work, and I literally could watch the moon track across the sky. I would stay up all night long, and I would see the moon go down in the morning, the sun come up. I just stayed up on it, and then it was time to do it all over again. And there are seasons of our life that are like that, and I think those should be the exception. The problem is it's become the norm, hasn't it? We're pushing ourselves all the time. Ain't no rest for the wicked. Money don't grow on trees, right? That's what they say. So we got to keep moving. We got to keep pushing. The exception has become the norm for us. And so many of us, we are racing without any margin in our life. We're running hurried, exhausted lives. We're always working. We're never resting. The phone keeps buzzing, doesn't it? Always notifications popping up, dinging all the time. And then we turn the TV on, and it is 24/7, just an onslaught of bad news that leads to that just kind of it's a percolation of anger and frustration and angst. And it doesn't lead to more rest. It actually, what it leads, it gets us all riled up anymore with more maybe outrage or fear. It's not leading to our rest, it's leading to our ruin. And this chronic exhaustion shows up in medical problems, doesn't it? They connect this a lack of rest with heart disease, with kidney disease, high blood pressure, and a whole lot more. They also find a lack of rest built into our life is connected with emotional problems. There's anger, there's frustration, there's depression, there's anxiety. You guys get the picture. Jesus described it this way. He said, "You are weary and heavy burdened." But he took it one step further. It's not only medical issues. It's not only emotional issues. Jesus said this is a spiritual issue. He said, "Oh, if you come to me, you'll find rest for your soul." I got to confess something. Because when I am worn out, when I am tired, and I'm exhausted, I am not a pleasant person to be around. And if my wife were here, she would say amen. It's true. I'm not. I mean, I am irritable. I am touchy. I say the wrong things at the wrong time. I'm not paying attention to the needs of other people. But I'm so focused on me. And, I'm just a first-class grump. Anybody else like that? That's it. When I am tired, when I'm worn out, that's me. But according to Jesus, the standard for walking with Him, He said, it is loving God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength and loving your neighbor as yourself. Here's the truth. It is hard to love when you're running on empty. Isn't it? I know that's true for my own life. From what I'm sensing, you guys are saying that's true too. if only Jesus could have foreseen this, you know? If only he would have known, we would have been tripped up by our constant hurry and everything. If only he had a plan or a means through which we might find some rest for our souls. And I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, well, Pastor, you know what? The devil doesn't take a day off. Last time I checked, we are not supposed to pattern our life after the devil. We're to pattern our life after Jesus, the one who said, come to me and I will give you rest. You'll find rest for your soul. The deepest thing that you're craving for, that's exactly what I have if you'll come to me. And by the way, in the end, the devil is destroyed. He leads to destruction. Jesus leads to life, an abundant life. You know what? The very fact is that Jesus kind of foresaw this coming. This isn't a surprise. In fact, he tells us that he has a plan for us. In fact, I said it's an ancient plan. And we have to go clear back to the very beginning of the Bible, back to the book of Genesis. In Genesis chapter 2, this is what we read. We find clues that God has put into our life and put into the rhythm of creation. In Genesis 2, we read this, thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he, go figure, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. What did God do on the seventh day? He rested, yeah. You say, you know, that's okay for God, but Pastor, I'm a type A personality. God rested. You say, oh, but Pastor, I've got little kids at home. God rested. I'm so busy. I mean, I'm running my own business. God rested. I've got bills to pay. I've got responsibilities. God rested. And this is going to hurt as soon as I say this. Remember, I love you. Pastor, I'm a farmer. You know what? God rested. God built a rhythm into creation. There's time to work and time to rest. So you know that you know what life is like when you get tired, you get weary, you get irritable, you get worn down. You know, it's just like that backpack you're trying to carry. Wouldn't you like to put it down? And some of you know what it's like when your heart is out of rhythm. Yeah, you guys know exactly what that's like. You have no energy. It's hard to catch your breath. You know, you're just trying to catch up. There's the pain in your chest. What if we could link between a lack of rest and that spiritual heart that's out of rhythm? What if we have spiritual heart arrhythmia? That I don't have spiritual energy. That I can't catch my spiritual breath anymore. I always seem to be in a hurry. I never seem to catch up. You know, I believe when we get our spiritual heart out of rhythm, we struggle with those same exact symptoms. You know, Jesus he said, that's what we're talking about. He said, I'm talking about you guys being weary of heavy burden. That is not my plan for you. My plan is for you to come to me, and I'll give you rest. Here's something to think about. It's really interesting. Do you realize that every single society has their calendar based on a 7-day week? You realize that? I mean, there's been times in history, it's kind of neat to look back on it, that some societies, they said, well, let's try a 10-day work week and see how that works. And what they've found out is we're more productive when we work for 6 days and we have a day of rest baked into it. And what's really amazing is that the week is the one measurement of time that is not connected to the movement of the moon and the stars and the sun. I mean, we mark our day that's based upon one revolution of the earth around its axis, right? That's one day. And we mark our month that's based on the lunar cycle, right? Some of you didn't realize that, but trust me, when a baby's about to be born, you're going to realize that, all right? And we measure 1 year. That's when the earth makes one full rotation all around the sun. That's called your birthday, all right? And we celebrate that. But here's the thing. The week is the only ordained rhythm of time that God established, and it's not connected to the stars. It's connected to the maker of the stars. Somebody said this, when you go against the grain of the universe, you'll get splinters. Man, I've been poked lots of times by that. Well, of course, we talk about the day of rest, and one of the places you find God directing people to experience this day of rest is in the Ten Commandments, right? And it's crazy because you see God baked in this day of rest in creation, and then when Adam and Eve fell away from God and disobeyed God, all of a sudden there's work and toil and thistles, and there's no rest. But when God delivered the people out of Egypt and He established this is how life is when you're walking with me, one of the things He reestablished in there is this day of rest again. And here's what He said. He said, remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth and the sea and all that is in them, but He rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and He made it holy. This is where I start geeking out about Bible stuff. This is the longest of the Ten Commandments. You realize that? If you were to put the Ten Commandments in kind of, okay, measure this all out, this is about 37% of the Ten Commandments, word-wise. What's crazy is this is the one that we brag so much about breaking. We don't brag much about disobeying our parents. But boy, we give ourselves a pass when it comes to just ignoring this day of rest. And you might think, well, okay, the Sabbath day, that's kind of an Old Testament idea. Well, Jesus brings it into the New Testament. The one who created all that there is, and the one who established the day of rest there with the people of Israel in the Ten Commandments. He's Jesus, the one who's come in the flesh. Here's what He said. The Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. What He's saying is that this day of rest that I have for you, it's not a burden that you're supposed to bear. It's a blessing that you can enjoy. So what will a day of rest do for you? Well, first, the day of rest offers you a time to stop and relax. Do you realize the world will keep spinning even if you are not working? It will. It truly will. Even in car racing, these guys, they're pushing it hard. But you know what they schedule in that car race as they all make left-hand turns with no blinker? You know what they do? They schedule periodic pit stops. Because they have to stop what they're doing and give a moment to rest, to refuel, because they realize there's a lot more race ahead of us, and it is so important if we stop. What do you think one of those cars would do? If they would have skipped that rest. We got places to go. We got things to do. We got a race to run here. What do you think is going to happen? That's called did not finish. That's what will happen in us, you know. We need those regular pit stops in our life. We need regular times where we're moving from being in a hurry to being at peace. We need times where we're from always busy to now reestablishing some margin in our life. From being frustrated to finding real rest. And from all the noise of our life to re-engaging with the peace of God. From all the distractions that always just kind of take us off focus. But when I take a day of rest, what that allows me to do is to refocus and to clarify what is truly important in my life. A day of rest gives you a moment to move beyond isolation and move back into community. This is especially true for people who, maybe those of you who are retired. It is so easy for us when we retire to become isolated. What the day of rest does, it allows us to re-engage with community. My mom and dad, they say, well, the reason why we keep going to church is so we can remember what day of the week it is. Because as retired people, you know, they all seem the same, except that one. And they reconnect with the body of Christ. And they get to see friends, and they get to see each other, and they get to celebrate each other. It's a day of rest is a scheduled time when you're moving away from the burdens and you rest in the blessings. A day of rest offers you time to stop, to rest in the very fact, this is my Father's world, and He is really good at running it. A day of rest is also do something else. It allows you a time to reconnect with the beauty of the world. And I find this, that when I don't take time to rest, I get overwhelmed by all the ugliness and the evil in the world. I need this time with the body of Christ. I need you to help me to refocus on the beautiful things that God is always doing in this world, and He is doing some amazing things. You know, we turn on, again, with the news and everything, we hear about floods and wars and poverty and crime, and it just never seems to end. And I'm not saying we ignore those things. What I'm realizing is that with a day of rest, what it does, it reconnects me with all the beauty and all the goodness that is happening. When you develop this habit of rest in your life, what you do is you remember to enjoy the good things that God is doing. Because all the evil things in our life just has a way of blinding us to the good things that the Lord is doing. If you develop a habit of rest, the third thing that it can do for you, you will have regular pit stops where you restore your depleted levels of joy. Anybody here have sorrows? Anybody got troubles? We got them all. That's guaranteed in your life. That is just going to happen. It's inevitable in life. Sorrow and troubles, that's inevitable. But you know what? Joy is a choice. When I take time to stop and rest and refocus, that's when I can choose to allow the Lord to fill me with the joy of the Lord that is my strength. The habit of rest, it's essential. It's essential. You won't grow spiritually if you're not taking regular times to rest. Regular times, just stop what you're doing and to be able to just to relax a bit, to believe God is in control of the world and you're not. To take time just to allow Him to refill your spiritual tank that always runs dry. It's a day to remember He's in control. You don't have to be in control. But you know what? You can go through those things and you miss, I think, the most important part about a day of rest. And The most important part, and I think also oftentimes the missing element for most of us, especially me as a pastor, but for most of us, the most important part and the missing element on a day of rest is worship. I wonder, you say, well, as a pastor. Because so often, like when I come to church and everything, I feel like that guy in the circus who has all the plates and all the poles. They have to keep spinning all the plates, make sure they're all working and everything. You know, you get home from church, and I'm just exhausted. Now, I'm not complaining about the plates and complaining what God's called me to do, but what I am saying is I need to be careful that I don't allow the busyness of a worship service to keep me from worshiping. Let's go back again to Genesis 2, because you're going to see a couple things that the Lord did. The seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. We've been talking about that. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. Do you see what God did on the seventh day? What did he do? He blessed that day. That word blessed, it carries the understanding of happy. Wouldn't it be great just to know that as you're going through your week and you're going working, you got to take an extra shift and all these things, you know, oh, but I can look forward to the happy day coming up. I know that day's coming. That day that is blessed. You know, it's a day where we purposely reconnect with God, with God's family, and we celebrate the opportunities that God has given us and the answers to prayer that the Lord has given to us. You know, it's a day to worship, yes, and that worship includes singing, but it also includes listening, and it includes learning. It includes praying together, and encouraging other people, and includes the times to eat together, or to give, or to receive blessings. It's a time to love, and actually a time to be loved. All those are baked into that day of rest. God also did something else on the seventh day. He not only blessed the seventh day, but he made it, what? Holy. He made it holy. Well, that's a good churchy word. It is. It's a wonderful word, and the word means uncommon. It means unique. It's special. There's something so different about that day of rest that it's markedly different than every other day of the week. You know, growing up at home, we had down in the we kept it in the Tupperware cupboard down there, but it was a box about this big. It was a wooden box, you know, and the lid opened, everything had a hinge and everything. It was covered with velvet on the inside, and we rarely got this thing out. Some of you still got that box at home, don't you? I can see you, Becky. Yeah, you only pull it out on special occasions. You know, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter. It's the only time you get that box out. But I can remember my mom said, "Okay, pull that out." And you reach down in there and you pull out that box, and you set it up on the counter, and you open it up, and that's where all the good silverware is, right? Yeah, special stuff. This, this isn't the stuff that you get from McDonald's, you know, that silverware. No, this is special. This is uncommon. You know, this is so unique. You see, we would pull out that silverware because on those particular days we realize something very special is happening. That's what we're talking about. We're talking about a day of rest, a day of worship. We're recognizing this is a day that is so different. It is so special. It is so uncommon. It's so unique that it is going to be so markedly different than everything else I'm doing all week long. Now, to experience that day of rest, there's a progression that we go through. And I've been talking to you guys about that. On the bottom of your note guide, you can see what I'm talking about. It begins when we stop what we're doing, stop what you normally do. And that's one thing. But the problem, what I find, is that even though we may stop the activity, we don't stop it in our mind, do we? We always keep thinking, well, I got to do this, got to make my list and everything else. And I realize that, you know, there's a momentum that we get in our day, in our week, that all the work we've got to do. But then we get to the next point. Okay, I finally get to the point of rest. And that's what Jesus said. Come to me. I'll give you rest for your souls. And in that day of rest, we're making this so special and so unique, where I'm stopping, I'm resting, and then I get to the point of I'm delighting. I'm receiving the encouragement that I needed from a friend at church today. I'm taking time to serve and to pray or to teach or to sing. Maybe there was something in a song, that phrase that caught me, and I heard that guy singing behind me, and oh man, that hit me in a way it never did before. And along that progression, there's a time where we get to the place where we worship. And it takes time to go through that progression. We can't just, flip a switch. It's more like a sunrise, I think. Yeah, you might find that your hamster wheel doesn't stop spinning as soon as you get up on Sunday morning. It may just keep on spinning until maybe even sometime in the afternoon. It might actually be, it might take even throughout that afternoon until you get to a place of real worship. And that's why when we're talking about a day of rest, we're not talking about an hour of worship. We're talking about a day of rest. As God leads us through this progression, leads us to this place of worship, gratitude, of recognizing that He's God, that I'm not, that He's meeting me, maybe as I'm taking a walk with the dogs in the afternoon or evening, and maybe just sitting out on the front porch and you're watching the sun come down. There's that moment where God leads you to the place of real rest. And He takes that burden that you've been carrying all week long. He said, oh, come to me. Give me that burden. I know you're tired. I know you're weary. Well, let me help you learn the rhythms of my grace. And maybe it is you're sitting and you're watching the sun go down, and that's finally at that place of worship. Thank God, I love you. I thank you. You are in control. I'm not. I trust you with everything. Yeah. See, the crazy thing is, many of us, we've been attending church for years. I've attended church my whole life. But I cannot say that I've worshiped God every time I've gone to church. I've gone to church, punch the clock, head back out. But I so often have come to church and it's not been a day of renewal. It's just been more burden because I've never actually come to the place of worship. This is the day that God has given us to rest. It is a gift that He offers you. Not a burden that you've got to endure. It's a gift for you to enjoy. The rest is up to you.